I saw an abandoned baby on the roadside this morning. When I was heading out, just as I was about to pick up the baby and take her home, I suddenly heard the baby's thoughts. My mom's plan is brilliant. She deliberately left me in front of Johnson to make him pick me up and adopt me. That way I can legitimately become the heir to the Johnson family. Back then, Johnson used his family background to viciously break up my parents. Now, raising my mom's illegitimate daughter is exactly what he deserves. Once I become Johnson's daughter, I will help my mom get rid of that bastard Johnson as soon as possible. Then bring my dad over so our family of three can reunite. The baby on the ground was still grinning at me, but I had heard her thoughts loud and clear. So, when Presley insisted on going abroad for a year-long business trip, despite my objections, she was actually going to have a child behind my back. A cold smile crossed my lips as I made a phone call. Since it is a bastard child, it should go where it belongs. That evening, Presley came through the door, carrying a large bag of formula and diapers. "Johnson, I heard you found an abandoned baby this morning when you went out. You cannot have children, so this baby's arrival is fate. Let us adopt her." I looked at her with feigned surprise. "Presley, what are you talking about? When did I pick up a child?" A flash of anxiety crossed Presley's face. "The child you found near our home this morning when you went out. Johnson, I know you have a kind heart. You definitely would not ignore an abandoned baby." I smiled. "That is natural. I rescue stray cats and dogs when I see them outside, let alone a child." Hearing me say this, Presley visibly relaxed. "And hurry and bring out the baby. She must be hungry. I bought formula, and I will make her a bottle right away," I said with an innocent expression. But the problem is I did not find any child. Presley's whole body stiffened. "Johnson, stop joking with me. Are you trying to surprise me?" My expression turned serious. "This is a human life."
How could I joke about that?
"If I really found a child, I would have called the police immediately. How could I just bring her home?" Presley said without thinking. "But he said he saw you carry the child home with his own eyes." I raised an eyebrow at Presley.
Who is he?
Realizing she had slipped up, Presley quickly covered the security guard. "Yes. The security guard from our complex said he saw you pick up the child," I said with a smile. "Then the guard must have been seeing things. After all, those guards are not young anymore. It is normal for their eyes to play tricks on them." No, he absolutely could not have been mistaken. Presley was certain I had brought the child home. She searched every room in the house at lightning speed, but did not see any trace of a baby. She instantly panicked. "How is this possible? Where is the child?" I walked over to comfort her. "Presley, if you want to be a mother, we can go to an orphanage and adopt one." I was born infertile, and had not hidden this from Presley before marriage. At time, she said she loved me as a person, and was willing to be child-free with me for life. To show her commitment, she even voluntarily had a tubal ligation. Back then, I was deeply moved by her gesture, thinking I had found a woman who truly loved me. Now thinking about that illegitimate daughter's existence, I found it utterly laughable. I pulled her arm, heading toward the bedroom. "Presley, you've had a long day.
Go get some rest."
Presley shook off my hand, saying anxiously, "I just remembered, I have some unfinished business at the office. I need to go handle it." Watching her hurried departure, a cold smile crossed my lips. I knew she was going to look for the child, but right now, no one except me knew where the child was. I slept until dawn the next morning. When I turned on my phone, I saw countless missed calls, all from Presley. Before I could do anything, another call came through. I answered, and Presley's anxious voice came through the phone. "Johnson, where did you go? I've been looking for you all night," I said in a relaxed tone. "I felt bored at home alone last night, so I stayed at my friend's place." "Why were you looking for me, Johnson?" "The child's father came looking. He said he saw you take the child with his own eyes yesterday. If we do not find the child, he is going to call the police. Please return the child to him."
Perfect.
I also wanted to see who the child's father really was. After hanging up, I got up, washed up, and drove straight back to the complex. Presley was pacing anxiously at the complex entrance, with a man in his 30s. As soon as I appeared, she rushed toward me, but her steps halted when she saw I was alone. "Johnson, where's the child?" I looked puzzled. "What child? I told you yesterday I did not find any child." The middle-aged man behind her heard this, and yelled at the top of his lungs. "It was you. I saw you take my child with my own eyes yesterday. Give me back my child." His shouting attracted many onlookers to the entrance. I examined the man. He was short with a beer belly and many wrinkles on his face. More importantly, He was clearly several years older than Presley. Unless she was blind, she would not cheat on me with this kind of man. Obviously, this man was just a smokescreen. Presley was protecting the child's real father. I said you need evidence to make accusations. I am not a human trafficker. Why would I take your child? Besides, I do not even know you. How could I take your child? Making such baseless accusations against me is slander. I think I am the one who should call the police. Cried with tears and snot running down his face. I am a manual labor. The child's mother left after the baby was born. I was worried I could not raise the child properly, so I left the child at the complex entrance, hoping someone wealthy would adopt her, so she could have a comfortable life. But now I know I was wrong. After separating from my child yesterday, I did not sleep all night. Please return the child to me. Presley chimed in from the side. Johnson, since he has realized his mistake, please return the child to him. Do not let father and daughter be separated. I frowned at Presley. Presley, how many times do I have to say it? I did not find a child. How can you not believe me, and instead believe a stranger? Presley was momentarily at a loss for words. The man next to her suddenly melted in front of me, apologizing continuously. Sir, I really know I was wrong. From now on, even if I have to sell everything I own or beg on the streets, I will never abandon my child again. I'm begging you. Please return the child to me. The child is my life. I said, seriously, I really did not take your child. Could you have remembered wrong or mistaken me for someone else? The man immediately denied it.
Impossible.
I remember clearly, it was you yesterday. You wore a blue t-shirt with a cat on it. Presley immediately confirmed. That is right, Johnson. That is exactly what you wore yesterday. LED by him and Presley, everyone seemed to have decided. I took the child, all urging me to return her. Children are the apple of their parents' eye. I think if he was not desperate, he would not have considered abandoning his child. Although he was wrong first, he came to his senses in time. So it is not too late. Return the child to the father. Did you hide someone else's child? If you do not hand her over, we will call the police to arrest you. I said someone helplessly. If there really was a child abandoned at the complex entrance, the security guard at the gate would definitely know. If you do not believe me, you can ask the guard. A resident immediately went to the guard booth to bring over the security guard and asked directly, when you were on duty yesterday, did you see this man take away a baby that was abandoned near the complex entrance? The guard shook his head no. Everything was normal during my shift yesterday. I did not see any child, let alone see this gentleman take away a child. These words, everyone turned to look at the middle-aged man, still kneeling on the ground, and accused him. So you were the one lying all along? You almost fooled us. I heard there are criminal gangs, specifically staking out high-end complexes, then using various pretexts to scam and extort money from residents. I think he is exactly that type of person. He pretended a child was taken by one of our residents. Then when the resident cannot produce the child, he extorts a large sum of money to settle the matter. We should call the police and have him arrested immediately. The middle-aged man panicked, immediately waving his hands frantically. No, I am not a scammer. I am really not a scammer. I really did leave my child at the entrance yesterday. And I really did see him take the child away. He grabbed my clothes frantically. Where did you take my child? Give me back my child. Presley was also extremely anxious. At this moment, Johnson, I believe he is not lying. It has been a whole day and night. If something happens to the child, you could be a murderer. I looked at Presley coldly and questioned her sternly. So you are saying the guard and I are both lying? Presley, what is wrong with you? You would rather believe a stranger than your own husband. The crowd also spoke up for me. The average price per square foot in our complex is high. Everyone living here is either rich or privileged. Who would bother hiding a child?
Exactly.
I believe Johnson and the guard are not lying. This man must be deliberately slandering them. Someone even looked at Presley. Your attitude has been strange all along. So insistent that the child was hidden by your husband. Are you in cahoots with this fat man? Presley said somewhat guiltily. I just thought his anxious manner did not seem fake. I stared at him intently. Is that so? But did you not say last night that the security guard told you I picked up a child? The guard immediately denied it. I did not even speak to this resident yesterday.
How could I have told him that?
So tell me, Presley, why have you been so certain since last night that I picked up a child? Presley was speechless under my questioning, cold sweat sliding continuously from her forehead. Just then, the fat man's phone chimed. He took out his phone, looked at it, then said loudly, I have evidence to prove you took the child. He then opened a surveillance video on his phone for everyone to see. The video clearly showed me standing in front of a baby for several minutes, then making a phone call before carrying the child into the complex. With surveillance video as evidence, Presley immediately regained her confidence. Johnson, the evidence is irrefutable. How will you deny it now? The onlookers also turned their opinions around, getting to pressure and accused the guard and me. The guard was the first to break under pressure and confess the truth. It was him. He gave me $50,000 to cooperate and change my testimony.
Child was taken by him.
It has nothing to do with me. This statement drew everyone's attention to me. Presley assumed a posture of being concerned for me, earnestly trying to persuade me, Johnson, just bring out the child. Otherwise, when this gets to the police station, I will not be able to protect you. The fat man looked like he wanted to devour me. Now the facts are clear. You conspired with the guard to abduct my child. Return the child to me now, or I will fight you. The crowd looked at me with constant accusations. Never thought he was this kind of person. Living in our complex is such a disgrace to us residents. I heard he has been married for years without children. He must have wanted to abduct someone else's child, because he cannot have his own. Everyone call the police quickly and arrest this human trafficker. Let him rot in prison. Facing the crowd's accusations, I calmly pulled out a paternity test from my bag. Presley, can you explain to me why the child he lost is identified as your biological daughter? The silence that descended upon the complex entrance was absolute.
It was the
kind of deafening quiet that follows a lightning strike just before the thunder rolls in. The crisp, official laboratory paper in my hand fluttered slightly in the morning breeze. The seal of the city's most prestigious private genetic testing facility gleamed in the sunlight. Presley's eyes darted from the paper to my face, her pupils dilated in raw, unfiltered terror. The blood completely drained from her cheeks, leaving her looking like a wax figure left out to melt. "W, what are you talking about?" she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. Completely stripped of the righteous indignation she had been wielding just seconds prior. That's impossible. You're forging documents now, Johnson? Just to get out of trouble? A forgery? I chuckled, the sound devoid of any warmth. Presley, this clinic guarantees a 3-hour turnaround for emergency testing. Yesterday, after I abducted this child, I didn't bring her home. I drove her straight to Dr. Eris's private lab. I had them take a buccal swab from the baby. As for your sample, I gestured to her meticulously styled hair. Your hairbrush at home provided more than enough follicles. The crowd of affluent onlookers, who just moments ago were ready to crucify me, now stared at Presley in mounting horror and disgust. Wait! One of our neighbors, a sharp-eyed corporate lawyer named Mrs. Gable, stepped forward. You're telling us this abandoned baby is her biological child? But she's been on a business trip in Europe for the past year. Has she? I asked softly, my eyes locked on my wife. Because according to her passport records, which my attorney pulled at 6 a.m. this morning, Presley hasn't left the country in 3 years. She's been renting a private villa in the neighboring city of Oakstone for the past 11 months. Just long enough to carry a pregnancy to term and recover. Presley stumbled backward, her designer heels catching on the pavement.
Shut up.
You're lying. You're just trying to frame me because you're barren and out of your mind. Am I? I turned my gaze to the fat man, who was still kneeling on the ground, though his grief-stricken father act had rapidly dissolved into panicked
sweat.
And you said you were a manual laborer whose wife left him, right? Then why are you wearing a Rolex Submariner under that cheap, oversized flannel shirt? The crowd gasped as the fat man instinctively grabbed his left wrist, trying to pull the sleeve down over the glint of silver he had forgotten to take off. Let me guess, I continued, taking a step toward him. You're an actor.
Or a
hired thug. Presley paid you to come here, cause a scene, and establish a public record that I stole the baby. That way, when the police inevitably got involved, I would have no choice but to officially adopt the child to avoid kidnapping charges, or better yet, I'd be so emotionally manipulated by Presley's kindness that I'd willingly take the child in. I don't know what you're talking about, the fat man stammered, scrambling to his feet. I'm leaving. You people are crazy. You're not going anywhere, Mrs. Gable snapped, signaling the 2 large estate security guards who hadn't been compromised. I already called the police 5 minutes ago when you accused Johnson of trafficking. They'll be here any second. Panic fully set in. The compromised guard, who had just accused me of bribing him $50,000, tried to slip away toward the guardhouse. And as for you, I called out, halting him in his tracks. You claimed I wired you $50,000 to change my testimony? I pulled out my phone and held the screen up. This is a real-time feed of my bank accounts, not a single withdrawal. However, my private investigator managed to access the complex's CCTV network logs. The footage you just showed everyone. I pointed at the fat
month.
It was downloaded at 2 a.m. from the security terminal. And funnily enough, a secondary bank account registered to Presley transferred exactly $50,000 to your routing number at 2:15 a.m. You were bribed, all right. Just not by me. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder with every passing second. Presley fell to her knees, her hands covering her face, as she began to sob. Real tears this time, born of pure desperation. Johnson, please let me explain. It's not what you think. I was forced. I was assaulted. I didn't know how to tell you. I was so scared you would divorce me. I looked down at her, feeling absolutely nothing. The woman I had loved, the woman I had thought sacrificed her own desire for children just to be with me, was nothing more than a hollow shell of deceit. Assaulted. I raised an eyebrow. Is that the narrative you're going with now? Then tell me, Presley, why did the baby's thoughts reveal that her father is Carter Hayes? Presley froze. Her sobbing cut off abruptly. She looked up at me, her tear-streaked face twisting in confusion and terror. What did you say? Carter Hayes. I repeated the name slowly, tasting the venom on my tongue. Carter was her college ex, a charming, manipulative parasite who had targeted Presley for her family's modest wealth years ago. I hadn't viciously broken them up, as the baby's inner monologue had accused. I had simply hired a private investigator to prove to Presley that Carter was sleeping with 3 other women and stealing from her bank account. She had dumped him in tears and thrown herself into my arms. Or so I had thought. Clearly, the allure of true love had drawn her back to the bastard, and they had spent the last few years cooking up a scheme to siphon my corporate empire. Since we had an ironclad prenuptial agreement, the only way she could get her hands on my entire estate was to provide an heir. My infertility was a roadblock, but not an insurmountable one, if she could trick me into legally adopting her illegitimate spawn. How do you know that name? Presley whispered, her voice trembling. I haven't spoken to Carter in 5 years. Oh, Presley, I sighed, kneeling down so I was eye level with her.
You
underestimate me. You always have. I didn't tell her about the telepathy. Let her think I had outsmarted her through pure, terrifying competence. 2 police cruisers screeched to a halt at the complex gates. Officers poured out, demanding to know what was going on. Within 30 minutes, the fat man was in handcuffs, profusely confessing that he was a struggling actor hired off Craigslist by a guy named Carter for $5,000. The compromised security guard was sobbing in the back of a squad car, admitting to the wire transfer. And Presley was being read her Miranda rights for child abandonment and fraud. Wait. Johnson, please. You can't do this to me. Presley screamed as the female officer cuffed her hands behind her back. Where is my baby? Where is my daughter? I adjusted my cuffs and looked at her coolly. Your daughter?
You mean the
abandoned baby I found on the roadside? As a law-abiding citizen, I immediately surrendered her to the Department of Children and Family Services. She is currently a ward of the state because her biological mother tied her up in a garbage bag and left her on a sidewalk. She will be placed into the foster
care system.
Good luck getting custody of her from behind bars. Presley's shriek of absolute anguish echoed through the complex as she was shoved into the back of the cruiser. 2 days later, the dust had somewhat settled, but the legal storm was just beginning. I had immediately filed for divorce, invoking the infidelity clause in our prenuptial agreement, which stripped Presley of any claim to my assets. My legal team was out for blood. I received a call from Detective Reynolds, the lead investigator on the child abandonment case. Mr. Johnson, we need you to come down to the county hospital's pediatric ward. We have the child in protective custody there pending placement, but there's a complication. What kind of complication? I asked, looking out the floor-to-ceiling windows of my corner office. A man named Carter Hayes showed up an hour ago. He's claiming to be the biological father. He's demanding custody of the child, and frankly, he's brought a team of lawyers threatening to sue the city and you for unlawful separation and emotional distress. He claims Presley suffered a mental break. and abandoned the child without his knowledge, and that you manipulated the situation to steal his baby. A cold smile crossed my lips. I'll be right there. When I arrived at the sterile, brightly lit pediatric ward, the tension in the hallway was palpable. Detective Reynolds was arguing with a tall, handsome man in a tailored suit who looked completely out of place among the tired nurses and crying infants. Carter Hayes. He hadn't aged well. Beneath the expensive suit, there was a desperate, hollow look in his eyes, the look of a gambler who had just bet his life savings on a losing hand. There he is. Carter snarled the moment he saw me. He lunged forward, but two officers immediately stepped between us. You sick bastard. You set my wife up. You set Presley up. She's not your wife, Carter, I said mildly, straightening my tie. She's my soon-to-be ex-wife. And from what I understand, she's currently rotting in county lockup because she couldn't make the $500,000 bail. You forced her to abandon the baby, Carter spat, pointing a trembling finger
At me.
She was terrified of you, you abusive piece of trash. You knew she was pregnant, and you threatened to kill her if she brought my child into your home. That's why she left her on the street. I actually laughed. It was such a pathetic, desperate pivot. Is that your legal strategy? Defamation? I have medical records proving Presley faked a tubal ligation, bank records showing she rented a house under a false name, and an entire complex full of witnesses who heard her insist she didn't know whose baby
It was.
You're grasping at straws, Carter. I have paternal rights, he roared. I'm taking my daughter home today.
And
Then I'm suing you for everything you own. Take it up with the judge, I replied, walking past him toward the observation window of the nursery. Through the glass, I saw rows of plastic cribs. In the corner, a nurse was gently rocking a small bundle. It was the baby, the illegitimate heir,
the
mastermind in a diaper. I asked the detective if I could step inside to identify the child for the official report. He nodded and let me into the room. The nurse smiled politely and laid the baby back down in her crib before stepping away to tend to another crying infant. I walked over and looked down at the tiny, red-faced creature. She had Presley's nose and Carter's deep-set eyes. Suddenly, the familiar, jarringly mature voice echoed directly into my brain, loud and clear. Damn it. Damn it all to hell. How did this happen? The plan was flawless.
my
Idiot mother was supposed to act surprised. He was supposed to adopt me out of the goodness of his pathetic heart. How did he figure it out? I leaned against the crib, maintaining a neutral expression, but inside I was fascinated. Reincarnation? A mutant anomaly? A demon? I didn't care. Whatever. She possessed adult cognition and deep-seated malice. Now I'm stuck in this disgusting hospital, wearing scratchy state-funded cotton. The baby's inner voice raged, her tiny fists clenching and unclenching.
And now,
My useless father is out there making a scene. Doesn't he realize that taking custody of me now ruins the whole inheritance plan? I need to be legally adopted by Johnson. If Carter takes me, I inherit nothing but his massive gambling debts. Gambling debts.
Ah,
That explained Carter's desperation. I have to do something. I have to look cute. I need to make Johnson feel a connection. The baby suddenly stopped thrashing. She looked up at me, her big eyes widening. She forced a toothless, angelic smile, reaching her tiny, chubby hands up toward my face, cooing softly. Look at me, you barren loser. Look at how sweet and innocent the first am.
feel the
Paternal instinct kicking in. Pity me. Save me. I leaned down, my face just inches from hers. I made sure the nurse's back was turned. You know, I whispered, so softly that only the baby could hear. For a genius, your parents are remarkably stupid. The baby's cooing stopped instantly. Her arms froze in midair. What? The voice in my head stammered. Did he just talk to me? Like he expects me to understand? I hear everything, I whispered, my smile widening into something dark and predatory. Every little thought. The inheritance plot. The plan to kill me off. The reunion with your deadbeat dad. I heard it all the moment I found you on the sidewalk. The baby's face contorted in absolute horror. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. He knows? He can read my mind. He knows everything. Oh my God. Oh my
God.
I'm dead. He's a monster. You wanted to play games with my life, little parasite? I whispered, tapping her gently on her button nose. Welcome to the real world. You aren't getting a Dime of my money. You aren't getting the Johnson family name. You're going to grow up with a father who is drowning in debt, or you're going to grow up in the foster system. Enjoy the bed you made." The baby let out an ear-piercing, hysterical shriek. It wasn't the cry of an infant wanting milk. It was the visceral scream of an adult whose entire life's work had just been burned to the ground. She thrashed wildly, her face turning purple.
No, no.
"It's not fair. My money. My empire. You bastard." The nurse rushed over, looking alarmed. "Oh my, she's really fussy today."
It's
"Okay, sweetie, it's okay." "She seems quite distressed," I said calmly, stepping back from the crib.
I'll
"Leave her to you. Good luck." I walked out of the nursery, the baby's telepathic screams fading into a dull buzz in the back of my mind. Carter was still arguing with the detective in the hallway. "Mr. Hayes," I called out, drawing his attention. "You want her? You can have her. I've signed the statement affirming I found her abandoned. Assuming the DNA test proves you're the father, the state will likely hand her over to you. Congratulations on your new bundle of joy." Carter looked at me, a mixture of triumph and confusion crossing his face. "You're giving up just like that? You're terrified of my lawyers, aren't you?" "Terrified," I deadpanned. "Just a piece of advice, Carter. Babies are expensive, especially when your bookie, Tony, the Hammer Vargas, is looking for the $200,000 you owe him." Carter's triumphant smirk vanished instantly. His face went ashen.
How?
"Do you know about Tony? I'm a very wealthy, very well-connected man." I lied smoothly, crediting my own resources rather than the baby's mental confession. "If I were you, I'd worry less about suing me and more about how you're going to pay for diapers while loan sharks are breaking your kneecaps." I left him standing there, frozen in terror, and walked out of the hospital into the bright afternoon sun. The following months were a masterclass in systematic destruction. Presley's criminal trial for felony child abandonment and fraud was a media circus. Given the high-profile nature of our complex and my standing in the business community, the press ate it up. Her defense attorneys tried to spin a tale of postpartum psychosis and emotional abuse on my end, but the prosecution, armed with the evidence my private investigators had compiled, tore her apart. They presented the fake tubal ligation records. They presented the lease for the secret house in Oakstone. They presented the wire transfer to the security guard, and the emails between her and the actor she hired. It painted a crystal-clear picture of a premeditated, malicious conspiracy to commit fraud and extort a fortune. I sat in the front row of the courtroom every day, perfectly tailored and completely impassive. When Presley took the stand, she looked 10 years older. The luxurious salon treatments had washed out, leaving her hair dull and brittle. Her designer clothes had been replaced by a drab county-issued suit. "I just wanted a family," she sobbed on the stand, staring directly at me, begging for a shred of the empathy I used to have for her. "Johnson, you couldn't give me a child. I loved you, but I needed to be a mother. Carter was just a sperm donor. I was going to raise her with you. We could have been happy." "Objection," the prosecutor drawled. "Relevance. The defendant is attempting to justify criminal abandonment and financial fraud with emotional appeals." "Sustained," the judge ruled. During the trial, another piece of the puzzle fell into place. Carter Hayes had indeed been granted custody of his telepathic, malevolent daughter. But the happily ever after the baby had envisioned turned into a living nightmare. With Presley's funds frozen by the divorce proceedings and her impending criminal conviction, Carter's source of income dried up instantly. The gambling debts he owed to unsavory characters caught up with him. According to reports my PI fed me, Carter was evicted from his luxury apartment 3 weeks after taking custody of the baby.
He was forced to move into a
roach-infested motel in a rough part of town. The stress of being a single father, combined with his total lack of paternal instinct, broke him. He started drinking heavily. I occasionally drove by his neighborhood in my tinted town car, just to observe. Once, I parked outside a dilapidated grocery store and saw Carter carrying the baby in a cheap, soiled carrier. He looked exhausted, bruised, likely from a run-in with his bookies, and utterly miserable. As he walked past my car, completely unaware of my presence, I tuned into the baby's frequency. "I hate this. I hate this so much. It's cold. I'm hungry. This idiot hasn't changed my diaper in 6 hours. I'm supposed to be an heiress. I was supposed to be wearing silk and drinking imported formula in a mansion. Instead, I'm stuck with this pathetic, abusive loser. He yelled at me yesterday. He actually yelled at me. I want my mom. Where is she? Why hasn't she come with the money? I rolled up the window, a genuine smile touching my lips for the first time in months. The baby's brilliant plan had orchestrated her own personal hell.
She
Was trapped in the useless, helpless body of an infant, forced to endure the squalor and neglect of the very man she had plotted to reunite with. By the end of the month, the judge handed down Presley's sentence. Given the premeditation and lack of remorse shown until she was caught, she was sentenced to 5 years in a state penitentiary for felony fraud and child endangerment. The divorce was finalized a week later. The prenuptial agreement held firm.
The
judge awarded Presley absolutely nothing. She walked away from our marriage with exactly what she brought into it, nothing but lies.
A year passed.
The leaves in the courtyard of my estate turned from vibrant green to a burnt, crisp orange. My life had moved on. The sting of Presley's betrayal had long since faded, replaced by the deep, resonant peace of a life completely under my
Control.
My company stock was at an all-time high. I had philanthropic projects that brought me genuine joy, and the air in my home felt clean, no longer poisoned by a toxic masquerade. But a strategist never leaves loose ends without checking them one last time. It was late November when I received the final report from my private investigator regarding Carter Hayes and the child. I sat by the fireplace, nursing a glass of 20-year-old scotch, and opened the manila folder. Carter hadn't made it. 6 months ago, his bookies had finally lost their patience. They cornered him in an alley behind a dive bar. He was hospitalized with multiple fractures and a severe concussion. When the police investigated the assault, they discovered a small stash of illegal narcotics in Carter's motel room, undoubtedly something he was trying to sell to pay off his debts. Child Protective Services had immediately stepped in. Carter was deemed an unfit parent, his parental rights severed. He was currently serving a 3-year sentence for possession with intent to distribute. As for the child, I flipped to the last page of the report. There was a photograph of a toddler, roughly a year and a half old, sitting on a worn plastic mat in what looked like a crowded, underfunded state orphanage. She was staring directly at the camera. Even through the grainy photo, I could see the seething, impotent rage in her
Eyes.
The adult mind trapped in a toddler's body, stripped of her wealthy mother, stripped of her biological father, and entirely forgotten by the billionaire she had tried to con. She was officially a ward of the state. Because of her difficult temperament, the staff noted she was unusually hostile, manipulative with other toddlers, and prone to terrifyingly silent temper tantrums. She had been passed over by 3 different foster families. Nobody wanted the creepy child who glared at them with the resentment of a scorned adult. I closed the folder and tossed it into the crackling fireplace. The flames curled around the edges of the paper, turning the photograph to ash in seconds. To fate, I murmured, raising my glass to the fire. The next morning, I drove out of my complex, wearing a crisp suit, the morning sun warming my face. As I passed the exact spot where I had found the abandoned baby over a year ago, I didn't even glance at it. I had a board meeting to attend, a charity gala to sponsor, and a life to live. I was infertile, yes. But looking at the peace I had secured for myself, I realized that blood didn't make a family. And sometimes, the greatest blessing a man can have is the trash taking itself out. I smiled, turned up the radio, and drove toward the city skyline, leaving the ghosts of my past far behind me.